Okay. Good day, everybody. So it is October 4th. It's a very special day, and we have a very special announcement today here as we roll out a brand new podcast from the Honoring Her Spark podcast. And it's going to be a series. So you'll be hearing a little bit more from Alicia and I on different topics that relate to women. And today we have a special guest, and that is Serese. So we'll just go through and do a little bit of an introductions, and I will get our beautiful guest or co-host here, Alicia, to introduce a little bit more about Honoring Her Spark and what Alicia does in her day job. She's a go-getter. She's a powerhouse woman. So take it away, Alicia.
Thanks, Jordan. My name is Alicia Buckley. I am a program director with the Aboriginal Friendship Centers of Saskatchewan. I run two very different, projects for Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited out of AFCS, out of the Center for Indigenous Women, Girls, and Gender Diversity. And so we're here to talk about one of these projects today that we've been working on called Honoring Her Spark. It's a really important project as we work towards Indigenous economic security and prosperity for Indigenous women in the province. When I talk about Indigenous women, I include girls, elders, and 2S LGBTQ plus individuals. So we're starting a brand new chapter in this project as we're starting the implementation. So last year we had a whirlwind of a time, and we went to all of our friendship centers. We did online surveys, gathered a lot of data from information from Indigenous women on the ground of some of the barriers that they have, their needs, and how we can move together forward, really ensuring economic prosperity and security and increasing our economic landscape across the province for all women.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce a little bit about kind of our connection. So Alicia and I actually met through a group that I helped facilitate, and Alicia actually sits on the board. So that's the SICAP board, and that's Saskatoon Indigenous Community Action Partnership. And so essentially what it is a bit of an interagency that exists within Saskatoon to help to better the lives of individuals within the city for Indigenous people. Sorry. So I guess how this all came to be was Alicia and I and a few others were kind of shooting around some ideas for like what we could do for women. And then our lovely friend who's commenting on the side section there. There we go. Derek Rowe, Pouty team. So Derek is kind of a little bit of a puppet master, bringing us all together, introducing us to Serese. And Serese has a wonderful product that she'll introduce in just a few minutes here. But Derek actually introduced us, and we started floating ideas around for what we could do for women and what we could do within Saskatoon. And then Alicia just blew it out of the water, and she's like, "Let's do it in the province." Okay. So it's been a lot of planning, a lot of hard work, and some really, really interesting conversations and some really meaningful impact that this project is going to have. So Aboriginal Friendship Centers, SICAP, and ORA. So we came together to do this podcast today to commemorate and honor the National Day of Awareness for MMIWG2S+. So we really wanted to introduce this today just because what this day signifies for all women, but especially for Indigenous women in Canada. And that is the nature of the project. And we really wanted to pay homage to that. So the Honoring Her Spark podcast series will create a platform for Indigenous people and diverse communities to learn and advocate on issues that impact the lives of women, girls, and the LGBTQ2S community. The Honoring Her Spark podcast and our special guests will engage and equip listeners with information, resources, and a safe space to have tough conversations. Together, we're a powerful force that'll change the future. your voice is important and needs to be heard. So join us. And we encourage our listeners to comment in the side section or send us messages if you want it to be kind of private somewhat, or if you have questions afterwards. We want this to be a bit of an open dialogue, which is why we did it live. And there was a few stumbles at the beginning, but that's all a part of the process, I guess. But yeah, we wanted to keep it very real, and we wanted to hear from community members because that's who this is for, right? So, and this is not only information for women, but it's for men and the greater community and organizations, right? To be a part of something big. So don't make your first action inaction. You're here listening right now, so those are the steps that you're taking towards that. So, yeah, let's get rolling here. So, Serese, our lovely guest, Serese will introduce herself a little bit and tell us about, some of the things that she does. So, take it away, Serese.
Well, thank you. I am so thrilled and excited to be here, and I'm the first guest. So, woo! Nobody can say that but me. I'm the first guest. So I'm so excited. Thank you for choosing to have me on here. I feel incredibly honored to be here, specifically on this incredibly important day today. My name, as you said, is Serese Selanders. I'm the founder and CEO of ORA. And what we do is we help to keep people safe by leveraging technology. And that's through wearable safety devices that are discreet, but actually can help hopefully save people's lives.
Okay, so maybe we'll just dig right into that. If you want to tell us a little bit about ORA. So what is ORA, and why did you decide to start this company?
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I didn't have anything to do with the tech space at all, not even a little bit. But I was just going about my life and had some life things happen. My mom got very ill and passed away, and then my dad got ill, and I was looking for a way to keep my dad safe. And I come from a small little town in southern Saskatchewan. And when I say small, I mean like really small, like 100 people in the middle of nowhere. So how do I keep him safe? And he's still young and didn't want to wear a medical alert device. And I'm thinking, surely we could do something better. We could create something that keeps people safe, that is respectful to them, and in terms of not making them wear a garage door opener and having it work with a smartphone. And I naively thought, how hard could it be to build a wearable tech device? Spoiler alert, it's really hard. Really hard. But I persevered and created ORA. So ORA is a very small device. I'm actually wearing it in this jewelry. So it's a very teeny tiny device that hides, there we go, hides inside different holders. It pairs with your smartphone. And in the event of an emergency, you just press the button. Alert goes out to your contacts that you've selected, where they get alarming noise. They say, let's say it's Jordan. Jordan's having an emergency, and it gives their GPS location. Let's say Alicia and I are her contacts, and Alicia responds. I'd be notified, knowing that Alicia's responding. But if we can't get a hold of you, then this little device instructs your phone to call 911 as a backup.
Okay. That's awesome. So, one of the pillars of SICAP is safety. And so this is where the conversation of ORA actually came up, was how do we offer tools and resources to community to help keep people safe, because I don't think I'm alone in saying this, but I've walked through parking lots plenty of times with my keys in my hand, like ready to jab someone if they come at me, but that's the reality for women. So thank you, Serese. That it's such an important thing that you do. And I think we came up with a pretty creative way to work with it. So, so where can people get one?
Well, there's where we sell ORA is online. So it's oraforyou.com. So that's ORAFORYOU.com, oraforyou.com. And then you can go in and you can select different devices. I don't know if Alicia wants to speak any more to alternative options.
Yeah. So I guess the idea behind some of the projects that we're doing is how do we increase safety? We're looking at different resources, different ways that we can really connect people and empower women to be more safe, learn about their awareness, learn about their personal surroundings and what this looks like. So we're talking about safety. We're not just talking, like Jordan said, in a dark alley somewhere. We're talking about food security. We're talking about how a mother can protect her children. We're talking about domestic violence or interpersonal violence situations, multiple different situations, whether that's self-harm, mental health and addictions, cultural safety. So when we're talking about this, we really want to make sure that our basic needs, and that includes safety and what all that entails, whether that's shelter, food, clothing, water, transportation, access to culture, supports, everything revolves around how safe we are. So there are different resources that we have, and as a provincial territorial association for our friendship centers, we want to remind people that if they go to their friendship center, we are able to help them in different ways. So that's kind of where maybe I'll leave it at that, but there's many different options that if anybody wants to get in touch with us, we're sure we can help somebody out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess, yeah, that leads me to my next question. So, Serese, what other groups or people have used ORA, and what other ways?
Yeah, well, and I think Alicia really hit the nail on the head there, and that is, like, we do have a tendency to think of safety kind of in a very broad sense, but it's very, very personal, and every circumstance is so unique and so different. And like I said, I created this for my dad, and that was my original intent. But our very first customer was a real estate agent. And when she came to us, she said, first of all, I show homes, I'm by myself, that sort of thing. And then she said, I also live alone, and I do worry about living alone in a very broad sense, but it's very. Mm-hmm. And since then, we've had, students. We've worked with other agencies similar to the Aboriginal Friendship Center, one in Calgary in particular, that works with very vulnerable people and with people who are at risk, and just providing some tools. And this is only one tool in terms of how people can stay safe. But what we do is we help people in all age ranges and all circumstances and demographics. But certainly in terms of who knows more, who could benefit from that, it's absolutely Alicia, and it's her initiative and what she's doing, and the great work that the Aboriginal Friendship Centers are doing, to help bring home these tools to vulnerable people in terms of keeping them safe. So hats off to you, Alicia, and all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
So we have some questions coming in. Maybe we'll just get to the questions at the end, but keep them coming, and we'll definitely address those a bit at the end. I guess, yeah, that takes it back to Alicia. So maybe we can talk about some of the ways that honoring her spark and the women's coalitions and what you're planning to do with that, and how to incorporate the two and how they work together.
Of course. So honoring her spark, like I said, we did all the data collection. We figured out what Indigenous women need, some of the barriers, and how we can move forward. And that's where we created the first Indigenous women's economic framework. When we're talking about economics, as Indigenous women, our worldview is much more holistic. We talk about the entire medicine wheel, whether that's an infant to an elder, political to social, anything you could possibly imagine. So our framework really delves into what that looks like for an Indigenous woman. So the framework itself is in 3 parts. One is really looking at an individual level. How can we help balance in women's medicine wheels? We know that needs change day to day, hour to hour, whether or not my kid has daycare one day, whether or not I have a food to put on the table, anything like that. Then we come together, we really need support. That was the number one need that kept coming out. So what does that support look like? It could be culturally relevant reporting. It could be support from an organization. That could be funding to organizations who provide that support. So we really need to be flexible in what that looks like, but it's coming together through Indigenous women's coalitions. So today is another announcement, is that we're going to start our first Indigenous Women Coalition. So COVID obviously has impacted all of us. So we're going to start with a Facebook group through the Honoring Her Spark webpage, and we'll come together, share how we can support each other, where we're from, and then hopefully as soon as things are a little bit back to normal and our friendship centers are able to host gatherings, we're gonna hopefully meet once a month at the local friendship centers to really connect and how we can empower. We'll look at different educational pieces that we can offer. We'll look at some self-care that could be really fun. I know some ideas that came out were like an all-female hunt, or maybe a little spa day. So things that are easy that we can really come together and enjoy, really do some self-care. And then the third piece of the framework is really getting at those policies. What does it look like through an Indigenous women's lens that we can remove or enhance policy that removes the barriers, that we can try to figure out different procedures, how organizations or our leadership can really focus towards creating more inclusive safe spaces.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Wow. So I guess that's pretty incredible, Alicia. So how long has this whole process taken AFCS, like, and where did it kind of begin?
Well, it began with our executive director, Laurie Bouvier. She put together a proposal through Women and Gender Equality Canada, but realized that this is only the first step. How do we advocate for those voices who don't have a voice for themselves? Mm-hmm. So that's where this whole idea started. And then it kind of blew up. So it started in 2018. It got a little bit of a slow start. Yeah. But then all of 2019, did all of our data collection, wrote the report. We released the framework June of this year, and it's been kind of steadily increasing and growing as we keep going. So the next phase is the implementation. So that's why I said we're going to do the coalitions. We have some really unique opportunities. We actually just got word from our national association that the coalitions, local ones, will be able to, those who are ready can start their own small social enterprises. So it'll be pretty exciting to see how we can really empower women to be able to help their communities, help themselves through the Friendship Center network, obviously, but what it looks like on the ground, how we can build even more economic opportunities.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's so huge. I'm so excited to see what comes out of the different coalitions, and it'll really help to create that network that I think is needed for women, right? Like there's power and strength in numbers, and I think this is like a huge start, especially for, like, I look at my own community. We have a friendship center here, and we chatted about this a little bit, Alicia, but my mom works there, and she's been doing prenatal nutrition and working with women since, like, for as long as I can remember. So she's helped a lot of people breastfeed and take those steps, taking care of their babies and their families. And I think, like, the more power and knowledge and resources we give to communities, like, more things like that can start to happen, and people can see what is out there to help support them, right? And especially we're talking about women today on this day. So I think the opportunity to just have more resources, more awareness of what's going on is going to be huge. So thank you. On behalf of me and my crew here, I'm excited to see what happens in my community out of this. So cool. I guess going back to Aura, I see all the lovely jewelry on the ladies today. I see Serese, you've got your necklace. Are there other types of holders or what exists on that?
Yeah, as I kind of showed before, it pops out and there's different colors. So we've got a blue one. Ooh, there we go. They're all handmade, so there's no two alike. Here is purple, sorry, purple. And I think Alicia's favorite, black.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not into jewelry, or if this is not the style of jewelry for you, we have ones that are a little more discreet. So this guy weighs about the same as a piece of paper, is waterproof. It'd be something that you'd wear under a shirt. So if you don't want to show anything at all, or this particular one is something that you would just clip onto a belt clip. So that's what we have. The device itself, though, because it's so small and is adaptable, we do have heard of different people doing different things. Derek, who mentioned in the comments that his dad had used it, I understand that somebody is in his camp made something special for his dad that went around the wrist. And there's certainly been other ideas floating around with different ways that it could be used, because the idea, especially as it relates to personal security and personal safety, is that it should be discreet. It's the sort of thing that you don't want to wear something that's a big sign that says, "Hey, I'm wearing a safety device." You actually want to wear something that people don't know that you're wearing it. So that's the idea of disguising it into different holders, is that it just be there for you if you need it, and also so that you feel safe and secure, but it's completely anonymous. But I love the idea of that. Maybe if people have other ideas and they want to create solutions, that they can build their own holders and do their own thing.
Yeah, we've had some ideas floating around, Alicia and I. So we might give you an update on one of these podcasts. We'll see. Some beadwork, maybe some quill work. We're working on something. So send us your ideas too, folks. If you have ideas for how we can glam up the Aura, and we're looking for some cool traditional ideas, maybe some beadwork or whatnot. Okay, I have another question for you, Alicia. So, national inquiry on MMIW. So, how and did the women's coalitions and the work that AFCS is doing with honoring her spark in women, does it tie to the calls to justice in any way?
Of course. So one of the biggest things that we did is go through the TRC calls to action, the MMIW inquiries, calls for justice, UNDRIP articles, and connect every single suggestion, every single barrier, and every single need to all three. So it's pretty surprising to see, but we keep hearing over and over that number one, the development and implementation of the National Action Plan for the calls for justice is one of the highest priorities. So we've been asked to do different sessions and see how we can help shed the awareness that we've been gifted all this knowledge to those who will be able to take it further than us. So as much as we can read the calls for justice and understand them and ask ourselves how we can fulfill those roles, we're also seeing how we can make more connections and get more awareness out there.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing. And if you are interested and want more information on this framework that Alicia keeps referring to, you seriously need to reach out and get one of these incredible books that she has. I have a stack of them, and here we go. So this is what AFCS put together. This is the framework. So this is honoring her spark. It's incredible. Like the resources that exist within that book and the information that they've been able to gather is really incredible. And if you in your own personal life or in your professional life are looking for ways to begin to take some actions or some steps to addressing those calls to justice, I would highly recommend getting in touch with Alicia and having a discussion about that, because it's some pretty important stuff. So yeah, thanks again, Alicia.
I would echo that, because of course, having an opportunity to brainstorm with the two of you is been fantastic. And as a tech business person, kind of outsider, this has just been one of the best highlights of my career, I would say, is the openness and the warmth and the caring that the two of you, bring to me to say, hey, these are our challenges. What can you do? And that openness is just allowed, like a small business owner like me to bring forward, how I can contribute. And I just think it speaks volumes to the dedication that Alicia in particular is doing. You can tell the passion that she has to really move the dial in this, and the willingness to open up and bring different people in to help to not solve, but certainly address some of these critical issues. So speaking from myself and my experience, this has just really been incredible.
Oh,
thank you. That means so much.
No kidding. So maybe we'll just dive into that piece, Alicia, if you can, based on what you guys have found. So what are some of those barriers? Like, I know, every woman can probably, that's watching, or even man, can probably list off a bunch of things that heavily impact women. So, but yeah, based on the research that you guys have done, what are some of those barriers, and yeah, what have you found? What are the stats? Let's hear it.
So we actually were able to categorize 20 barriers, realizing that COVID has completely shifted everything, and a lot of these barriers are completely have moved ranks. That's for sure. So the number one barrier that we found was discrimination, whether that's sexism, racism, ableism. That's kind of the biggest. But then we'll move into programs and services, employment, what basic needs and access to those, education, mental health and addictions, childcare, lack of confidence and self-awareness, the impacts of colonialism and the trauma that comes from that, transportation, support and flexibility, how do we access those? Navigating services is a really big one. Family structure and roles, safety, crime and poverty, culture, technology, geography, human rights, politics, and even outside factors such as community deaths that have all impacted Indigenous women and LGBTQ2S+ individuals. So those are the top 20. Now realizing with COVID how safety has completely changed. So we may see technology skyrocketing now and communications to number one, just because that access hasn't been there. So the whole world is being zoomed out.
Here we are.
How do people actually access that? Whether or not they have the right devices or the right internet connection, what that communication. So we're so used to, especially as Indigenous people, having that in-person connections, but now that's all been completely flipped upside down. So we really, through some of this COVID stuff and all the work that we're doing at the AFCS to help support Indigenous people through our friendship centers, has really pushed this to how do we ensure tragedies like Nova Scotia or the murders that happen in Prince Albert, how do we remove this? Tristan Drochet really brought to light the suicide aspect, that this isolation has gotten to everybody. So how do we ensure that we're supporting people and seeing what they need for self-care? So again, the safety runs through all these barriers, and as much as COVID has shifted them, how do we help to address them?
And so on that note, how has, have you done research, or is any part of this tied to COVID, and what's like the ratio women to men on in terms of the impact COVID has had?
Well, we've actually found that COVID, and we're still doing tons of research because everything changes, but COVID has actually impacted women way more than men. If you think about the pink trades and how they were completely demolished, so salons, daycares were all shut down, but yet some trades were off for a week. My husband, for example, is a drywaller. He was off for a week and then went back to work because they figured out, well, if nobody else, one trade in at a time, they can produce safety. So that's kind of the biggest. We've noticed huge impacts of support services. So helplines, anywhere from 25 to 300% increase of calls. So we've noticed that children at risk of abuse or violence, that's completely increased as well. So one of our friendship centers actually has a transition home, and they're so far out of their league when it comes to capacity that it's really hard to ensure children's safety at this time. So trauma has been escalated. So it's kind of interesting that we're talking about how COVID has impacted, but it's definitely not something that is just another stay-at-home day. It's more than what it looks like on the surface.
Yeah, definitely. And Serese, what about your company and ORA and security? Like, has that changed since COVID, and what do you kind of foresee for the future? I know we're looking at, rising numbers right now, so there's no end in sight at the moment, but we're adapting, I guess.
Yeah, we're seeing, we don't see as closely as Alicia would see, because they're intimately involved with the community. But we certainly hear about what isolation is doing to vulnerable people and making it worse. And that is people of all kinds. And Alicia was talking about that before, but everything from older adults who, we can't go visit them, we can't see them. And so they've got that aspect of isolation, to people who are living in environments where they're now cooped up with their partner 24/7, and maybe isn't the best environment. And so the rates of violence are escalating, all the way to people are working alone a lot more.
Yeah.
And I also think too that people are taking a lot more risks. And we all know that depending on socioeconomic status, those risks are just, they're higher for a lot of people, for some people more than others. And so, yeah, it's concerning, very concerning.
I think that just brings me to another conversation that we had with this group, but it was just on all of those different ways that ORA can be used. Serese also has a company called Solace Guard, and it's similar to ORA, but it's a little more. I believe it's subscription based, right? And it can be used via satellite. So I'll actually let Serese explain it, but we were talking about some pretty cool ways of using that. So I'll let you maybe chat.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I don't want to take too much time, because this is really, about honoring our spark. But we do, technology is technology is here. There's some really great technology that's out there, and we need to be leveraging it more and more to keep people safe. How do we get that into the hands of people, whether that's a hardware device or whether that's software? But there's some great solutions out there, and we've been with ORA since day one. There got to be a time where businesses were saying, hey, we have people who work alone or at risk jobs. And that could be mental health and addictions workers. It could be home care nurses. It could be property managers. It could be all these kinds of people. But they have very unique needs. And so we created Solus Guard as a way to help businesses keep their employees safe. And so there's other stuff. There's some software there, check-in, check-out software and things like that. So Solus Guard is for businesses and ORA is for individuals. So it's very similar. The hardware is the same, and then kind of everything else is different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just thinking one of like hunters and trappers, who might be out, need that like satellite base. But I was also thinking of my own personal experience, working in community, and I was doing outreach work for people that had intellectual disabilities. And so I'd often have to go to their homes, right? And 9 out of 10 times I'd never met them, and if it was my initial visit or whatnot. So there was times when I would go up to a home not knowing what to expect, who to expect, and there was many times where I was pretty scared and worried about my safety. So I think, a lot of oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Jordan. I get so excited then I can't stop.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people say, well, I've already got my phone. I don't really need anything else. And whether that's, on the personal side of things or the business side of things, but it almost creates a false sense of security, because if you are somebody who's in a vulnerable position, and again, it doesn't matter if it's you as an individual at home or at work, if you're in a vulnerable position and somebody is attacking you, we'll say, how are you going to say, just hang on a second. I'm going to get my phone. It's just over here. I'm going to go get my phone. I'm going to unlock it and I'm going to, call a friend or dial 911. It just doesn't work that way. And I do worry that people just think I'm okay when really they may be not okay. So having something just super discreet that you just one button press away is really the ideal. Is to just ensure that you don't have to try to fight somebody off and try to call for help at the same time.
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you. I think ORA is an incredible tool and an incredible resource for people. So by all means, like if anybody is interested or has more questions about ORA or Solus Guard or anything for Serese, I can be your point of contact. Alicia can be your point of contact, and we can make those connections. So thank you so much, Serese. I guess just on that discussion about resources, I have more questions for the lovely Alicia. Just regarding resources, what else is available and how can people access those resources?
Well, there's lots depending on what kind of issues you're having. Again, I'd say go to your local friendship center first. They've got numerous different programs that cover everything from food security to court workers to, like you said, your mom works in the prenatal. So I know somebody was asking about counselors. So I know there's elders or knowledge keepers at most of our friendship centers that are willing to take and talk to somebody by phone or in person. But if you look at all the other kinds of resources, there's victim services, sexual assault services, there's stops to violence. Your local police department is definitely one of the big ones, even though a lot of Indigenous people don't feel safe there. So it's how do you go about maybe looking to victim services as that liaison. There are different shelters for different women and men. So there are warming shelters as well. I know it's starting to get colder and colder, but most of our friendship centers are open to even have somewhere warm. But most communities, there's somewhere to go warm up. There's shelters for fleeing violence, as well as shelters for moms and children. Somebody was asking about anything for online. Right now, a lot of them are on by phone. So 811, 211 are really good ones. There's also the Farm Stress Line. There's mental health, Canadian Mental Health Association locations across the province. A lot of different nonprofit family service type counseling as well. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the first step. The first step I would say is to reach out to someone you know or trust. And if you don't have anybody, to go to your local friendship center or to call AFCS.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I guess going back to the framework, the Honoring Her Spark framework, there's a lot of resources as well that people can use, like if it's for business or otherwise, right? Like you have a lot of connection to the resources that are gathered within that framework.
Yeah, so the framework is built pretty easy to use. We actually have a little page that says how to use this book. But we wanted to target, and when we were writing the book, we were asking who's the target audience. We kept saying everybody, anybody, whoever picks it up. But how do you do that? So we have different sections. So whether you're an Indigenous, an individual, there's a section. If you're a community organization, you're a section. If you're a group of women coming together, there's a section for you. If you're leadership or policymakers, there's a section for you. We even looked at different sectors. So health, housing, education, industry, trades. There's different sections for different people. So again, like you said, if you have any questions or want to learn a little bit more that came out, and all of the suggestions that we have in here, again, are tied to the calls to justice, or calls for justice, and the calls to action. So it really helps map out some of the frameworks that have already been developed at a national scale, and how we can do this at a local scale.
I love that. Okay. And I guess going back to some of the barriers that we had talked about, and I think you've answered this in a variety of different ways, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, but how does this work like really impact Indigenous women and communities? Like what are some of those steps that AFCS has taken?
I guess it's up for grabs. We're always looking to partnerships. We're always looking to see how we can improve our reach. And we're always collecting information. I know that sounds kind of horrible, especially for just an on the ground somebody, but we need to have those informed decisions. So we need to be able to collect these voices, and how do we share those voices to people who do make those decisions. So that's again where that next implementation phase is. How do we ensure that the information that we collected is then shared widely, so that we can start making this change.
Okay. And then I guess back to the coalitions. Can you tell us a little bit more about the coalitions, and like, let's say how people can who can access the coalitions? How do you become a part of it?
So we're expecting that any Indigenous woman, girl, elder, 2S LGBTQ plus individual will join. So like I said, we're going to first do a Facebook group, start making those connections, and then each local friendship center will start their own. So we're actually going to be hiring coalition coordinators for each of our friendship center communities to help host these little sessions, obviously following COVID guidelines, and seeing what we actually want to do in that community. So as much as we'll have a little bit of a learning piece, we'll also be able to have some fun. So we'll see how we can really help individual women, and from all walks of life, whether you're an executive director, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a woman just coming out of school, whether you're still in high school, who knows. We're expecting any and all to join us and see how we can help make small improvements, but at a really large impact.
Yeah. Lovely. I just have I'll pull up some comments here from the crowd. The framework book is a great resource. There we go. Some backup. Love seeing strong Indigenous women sharing the hard work they continue to do to move communities forward. Thank you, Chris. And then we had a question. So I don't know if you want to get to this question right now. So do you have counselors for online? So I guess that goes into the discussion of the coalitions, kind of how they'll function and some of the resources and supports that will be backed by that. And I'll just let Alicia kind of speak to that a bit.
Yeah, so I know a lot of things have shifted online, and we're actually helping our friendship centers see how they can adapt their programs to either over the phone or online. So we're hoping that some of our friendship centers are able to do those counseling online. But at this point, my kind of gut is to see who you can call first. So I know there's mobile crises, there's Kids Help Phone. Like I said, 811 is a really good resource that you can call 24/7, and it's free to anybody and it's confidential. So those are kind of the biggest right now. But if we can try to do more research and see again more partnerships that we can develop better resources for online.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think even, having these coalitions formed and having an active voice from all of the different like local coalition areas, having those women there to speak to some of these things, you're asking a question about counselors, online counselors. If there's a gap or if there's a need in community, like this is a perfect opportunity for people to come and speak to that, right? And to bring that forward to AFCS and initiatives like Honoring Her Spark. So that's why we really felt like this podcast and this opportunity to kind of share what's going to be happening was really important, because we are so disconnected right now, but we have a really interesting opportunity to have platforms like YouTube and Facebook and these podcasts to be able to still be in community without being in community, if that makes sense. Like being, I mean, I'm just referring to COVID safety, right? But your voice is so important, is the key thing. And I think Alicia's done a really incredible job with her team at AFCS and in providing a platform and a voice for people, for women especially, and communities to really look at like, what are the barriers and what can we do? What small steps can we do? And like, here is a framework, like there's so much there, but there's so much that can be done with that. But now comes the hard work and the action from community. So I guess what we're looking for as a group here with the Honoring Her Spark podcast is to really get a feel from the audience to know, how often do people want to see these podcasts and what days work best for people, but also what are those issues that people really want to hear about. Like there's a ton of content in the Honoring Her Spark framework that we're going to be pulling a lot out of, and the National Inquiry for the calls for justice. We'll be looking at, things that impact Indigenous women across the country, really. But we would love to hear your ideas, and we would love to have guests. Like if we had somebody right now that wanted to join the conversation, we can definitely do that. So we'd love to hear from community, and we want to keep this dialogue open and the conversation going and the work very much alive. So that's just some words for the audience. But I guess we can talk about steps moving forward now, and maybe just some remarks from Serese and Alicia on kind of where your business is and where your lives are going. And I guess I would ask you to do this in light of what today is, how that impacts women.
Oh my goodness.
That is
Was that a loaded question?
Yes.
Okay. Well, how about I'm gonna start.
No.
You got it. You got this, Serese. I love it. She's always up for a challenge.
Well, I realize I take this as a challenge, because I realize that, I don't know as much as I should.
Mhm.
I need to get a hold of that book resource. I need to educate myself. And as a business owner, community owner, that it's not just about providing these tools, but it's understanding the impact. And so I commit to educating myself and committing what I can to support this process. And again, I just want to thank you all for including me and having this opportunity, not just to share my story, but just to be a part of this. It's really, really profound.
Thank you, Serese. And we appreciate you so much. Like, I did not do the story of working with Serese justice, but she has been absolutely incredible in being so open to any of the ideas. Like, we've taken the product and the safety that it brings to our group, and we had so many different discussions, and this one just really fit, and Serese has just been so incredible and open to, however we want to introduce this to community. So I think that's very special, and we need more people that, are willing to just listen, really, and just, like, I'm not going to tell you how to do it in community, right? Like, and she was just so good about that. So thank you, Serese. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
And in light of today, there's a few things that I know people might be asking themselves, well, what can I do? First of all, wear red. As you see, all of us are wearing red. It's the color that spirits can see. So that's why we have the red dress, so that they come home. Those who are missing, those who have been taken from us, how do we get them home? And as part of that, we also have another campaign called Light the Way, where we're asking people to light a candle or turn their porch light on at sunset to light the way. And we're not just targeting MMIW, G2S, we're also targeting COVID, people who are impacted by all of this to come home, keep the lights on for them. Yeah. We're doing other things, and I really encourage everyone to read the calls for justice and ask yourself, put yourself in the person's position. It says, I call upon, but put that as you. Can you do that action? Because I'm sure that there's many ways that people can. Yeah. There's different vigils. I know one of our partners, PWAP and Women's Shelter in L'Orange, had a vigil. The Native Women's Association in Canada had a vigil. So if there are other vigils across the province, please attend them. Mm-hmm. There are
post events, like if there's other events and things today, if anybody's watching this, like, just post it in the comments so that anybody that watches our podcast can see that and maybe attend or view or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, is that there's that we don't know about yet. So yeah, do post them, and if you don't know of one, start a walk.
I love it.
Pretty simple to go down your main street in your community and wear a red dress and show your support.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And look at this lovely comment here. Changing the world, one meeting at a time. Great work from an amazing group of women. Honored. Well, thank you, Lori. That's so kind. Nathan from IOPS, he says IOPS will definitely be supporting. I'll have to get Nathan a framework, honoring her Spark framework book. This was so great to listen and learn from. Thank you for all the great work you're doing. We're so lucky to have such strong women in the community. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so nice to hear. Hey, it just feels good. But you guys deserve it. Like, you ladies are absolutely incredible powerhouses. So I'm honored to share this.
We are, Jordan. All of us.
Yeah. Oh, well, what a good discussion and such important information for the community. So please, like, if you're watching, share this with somebody that you think may need it or may not need it and just want to listen. Share away. There's a lot of great resources that we'll be following, and we'll be posting on the Honoring Her Spark YouTube channel, so it'll be shareable via email. And if anybody has questions, our names are all just below our little videos here. So add us as friends on Facebook, and we can answer any questions that you guys have, or go on the AFCS Facebook page and shoot your questions there. We will be asking the community to send us some feedback on, you know, how the conversation went. First off, what they think of the podcast and what are some topics that we should be covering that community wants to see. So, and kind of what days work best. Like if we keep doing the live version, which I really like because it's nice to like have the discussion with community. But yeah, what are times that work for people? What's your best viewing hour when you're not watching The Walking Dead? Because I hear there's a new season. So, and Alicia?
Tonight.
Oh, that. All right. Oh, too funny. Okay, so drop us a line. I hope everybody enjoyed this. I know I absolutely enjoyed this, and thank you guys for making this day extra special and really bringing to light some important things. So thank you, and thank you everybody for watching. Any last words, Serese or Alicia?
Thank you.
Just thank you and stay safe. And if you need us, we're here.